What happens when a black grandfather, honored with a silver star, gets mocked by a smug kid in front of a silent crowd? No one expected what this veteran would do next, and how one quiet moment turned the whole school upside down. You ever walk into a place and feel the temperature shift? Not the weather kind, but the people kind? Like your very presence made the air 10 degrees tighter? That's what hit me the moment I stepped into Westfield Elementary for their so-called Family Hero Day. Now listen, I wasn't there for applause. I didn't come seeking no spotlight or shiny certificate. I came because my granddaughter, Kayla, looked me dead in the eye 2 days before and said, "Grandpa Joe, you're the bravest person I know. Will you come?" Well, when your baby girl looks at you like you built the moon, you show up, no matter how stiff your knees are or how bad the back's barking from a war you brought home with you 50 years ago. So I put on my navy blazer, the one that still smells like mothballs in memory, clipped on that silver star, not for show, but out of respect for the brothers I didn't bring home. I even shined my old boots. Thought maybe, just maybe, I could sit among the firefighters, the nurses, the local weatherman with his 2 white teeth, and hold my ground. But ground don't mean a thing when folks don't want you standing on it. I took a seat on the bench near the back of the auditorium. Not too far, not too front, just enough to breathe. Kayla had gone in ahead with her class. Kids were buzzing around like bees in church. Parents mingling, some comparing whose spouse made more, others just trying to look important in borrowed suits. And then I saw him. Tall boy, maybe 12. Sandy hair, the kind that ain't seen a comb since Christmas. Brand new sneakers. Spotless. Walked like he'd never been told no in his life. He looked at me like I'd stolen his seat. Then he leaned over to his friend and said it plain as day. "Who brought the homeless guy?" Didn't even flinch. His friends laughed like it was comedy night, right there between the flags and the PTA cupcakes. Loud, sharp laughter that made the room tilt just a little to the side. That kind of laugh that ain't about humor. It's about power. Now I ain't soft. Not after crawling through jungle mud with men screaming in both ears. But something about that moment, it burned. I looked down at my boots. Shined, yes, but cracked. Old leather's honest, like that. It don't hide. I looked at my hands, the knuckles swollen from arthritis, the skin darker than everyone else's in that room. Then I looked at my chest, the metal shining like a reminder. You've earned your seat, even if they pretend you haven't. Kayla saw it. She had turned in her chair, her little hand clutching the seat like it could hold back tears. Her eyes locked with mine, and that girl, she didn't blink, but her jaw was tight. Real tight. And that's when the principal tapped the mic. "Welcome everyone to our Family Hero Day celebration." The program rolled on. Cops strutted across the stage talking about keeping the community safe. Nurses shared sweet stories about saving babies. The crowd clapped like it was church on Easter. Then it was Kayla's turn. She stood up, shaky knees and all, and looked straight at that crowd. That little voice came out strong. "My hero is my grandpa. He served in Vietnam. He saved lives. He's brave and kind and always shows up, even when his legs hurt." I swear the air changed for a second, like someone opened a window. She turned to me. "Grandpa, would you say something?" Now, I didn't plan to speak. I didn't come for speeches. But when your granddaughter asks you in front of a whole auditorium, you don't say, "No." So I stood. My knees cracked like old doors, but I stood, walked slow to the front, took the mic, looked out across that sea of tight smiles and folded arms. I ain't much for words, I started, but I've seen a lot. I've carried men out of fire. I've lost more than I can count. And I came back not to brag, but to raise a family, hold down a job, and teach my children how to stand when folks try to bend them. Silence. I don't need medals or parades. I just came to see my granddaughter smile. I handed the mic back and turned to sit. And that's when I heard it. A voice. That same boy. Loud and proud like the fool he was. Cool story, old man. Too bad it ain't real. I froze mid-step, my back stiff. My hand curled into a slow fist. The auditorium went dead quiet. Teachers didn't move. Parents shifted, pretending not to hear. The boy just grinned like he won something. Kayla's face crumpled. And me? I stood there thinking. Not about Vietnam. Not about foxholes or napalm, but about how easy it is to make someone invisible in their own country. I didn't say a word, just nodded once, slow and heavy. Sat back on my bench like it was a throne. Let them think what they want. I knew who I was. What happened next changed everything. And believe me, you don't want to miss how this story flips on its head. Stay right here. You'd think a room full of adults, folks with jobs, mortgages, and coffee breath, would step in when a child disrespects a veteran in front of everyone. You'd think at least one of them would say, "Now wait a second." But no, not a whisper, not a twitch, just a sea of polite smirks and rustling programs. That boy, that tall one with the smirk carved into his face like it was passed down through his bloodline, he leaned back like he'd just scored a touchdown. And everybody else? They let it happen. I left that auditorium with Kayla gripping my hand so tight I thought she'd snap my knuckles. I didn't say a word. Not to the principal. Not to the other parents. Not even to Kayla. What was there to say? When we got to the car, Kayla finally asked, her voice small, "Grandpa, why didn't anyone stop him?" I looked at her. Her eyes were red, but she hadn't cried. Strong kid. I'd seen soldiers crack faster. "Because," I said, "some folks don't hear anything unless it affects them directly. And others? Well, they heard it just fine. They just decided to stay comfortable." That night, I didn't sleep. Not from rage, not even from shame. It was something deeper. The kind of ache that sets into your ribs and makes your memories throb. I wasn't just angry for me. I was angry for every black man who's ever been told to sit down and smile, while someone else rewrites his story in real time. But you know what I did the next morning? I put that same blazer back on, shined those same boots, and walked right back to that school. No invite. No permission slip. I sat on the same damn bench. Didn't open a book. Didn't check a phone. Just sat. Let 'em look. First came the whispers. A few kids pointed. Teachers slowed down when passing, then hurried off like I might ask them something inconvenient. And then came her, Mrs. Winston. 5th grade teacher, mid-50s, glasses too big, voice like warm cornbread. She stopped right in front of me. "Mr. Wallace," she said, "would you like some coffee?" I looked up. "Ma'am, I haven't said a word since I sat down, but I sure appreciate someone finally saying something to me instead of about me." She smiled, tight, nervous. But it was something. Later that day, during recess, Kayla came running over. "You came back." "Of course I did," I said. "What kind of example would I be if I only showed up on the easy days?" She nodded, like she understood something adults couldn't quite grasp. Now here's where it gets thick. That same boy, the smirking one, name's Aiden, he saw us talking. His friends egged him on, whispering behind backpacks and laughter. You know the type. Pack wolves with soft chins. And what does Aiden do? He walks right up, shoulders squared, grin locked in. Still pretending to be a war hero? He says. Kayla gasps. She takes a step back. I stand. Not fast, not loud, but steady. I look that boy square in the eyes and say, Son, I've buried men younger than you with more honor in their fingernails than you've shown in your whole life. He blinks. Once, twice. Tries to laugh, but his voice catches like a bike chain on a rusted gear. You don't scare me, he mumbles. I ain't trying to, I say. But disrespect doesn't make you strong. It makes you small. And just like that, silence. But the silence didn't last long. Word got around. That moment, someone caught it on video. Not the first insult, not the auditorium incident. Number, but the quiet, powerful exchange out on the playground. By evening, the clip had a few thousand views. Nothing viral, just enough to ripple, just enough to get noticed. And that's when the real nonsense started. Emails went flying. The principal called me, sounding like someone who just realized their roof had been leaking for 10 years. We would appreciate if you allowed the staff to address these issues internally, he said. Oh, now you're interested in addressing it, I asked. Where was that energy when I was standing on your stage getting mocked by a child? He stammered something about policy and reputation. I hung up halfway through. Meanwhile, Aiden's mother, a woman named Cindy with nails like claws and an attitude to match, showed up at the school the next day, demanding apologies. My son is being targeted, she yelled in the hallway. That man is creating a hostile environment. Hostile? Try a war zone, sweetheart. Try sleeping in rice paddies with bugs in your boots and no backup. This question mark, this was a bench. But I stayed seated. Every morning, every afternoon. Just me, my blazer, and the bench. And slowly, things began to shift. One kid came up, asked about the medal. Another asked if I'd ever been scared. I told them the truth. Every day. But being scared ain't the same as being weak. And one by one, they sat beside me. Not because I asked, but because they saw. This is the climax. Everything you've been waiting for is right here. Stick around. You do not want to miss how this man turns. Friday came fast, like the world was racing toward something nobody saw coming. By now, the bench had become a kind of unofficial attraction. Kids stopped by like it was a story station. A few teachers would nod on their way past, but still avoided too much eye contact. You know, like if they looked too long, they'd have to do something. But this Friday wasn't like the others. Something was different, tighter, like the whole school was holding its breath. I found out why soon enough. They were hosting an all-school assembly. Last minute, of course, real hush-hush. Principal Blanding said it was to reaffirm school values, which is code for something went public, and now we're in cleanup mode. What they didn't expect? Me showing up early and walking right into that auditorium with Kayla, holding my hand like a ribbon tied around a firework. We sat near the front this time. I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't making it easier for them to ignore me. The room filled up. Kids, staff, parents, including her. Cindy, storming in with that same energy that makes a room colder just by standing in it. Aiden trailed behind, not as tall this time, not as loud. That smirk? Gone, replaced with something tight and unsure. Principal Blanding took the mic. Today, he said, we want to focus on empathy, understanding, and the power of our voices. Folks clapped, lightly, nervously. Then, surprise, surprise, he added. And one of our students has written something he'd like to share. My eyebrows raised before I could stop them. And when Aiden walked up to the podium, holding a folded sheet of notebook paper, the entire room shifted again. You could feel it. He stood quiet for a moment, swallowed hard, looked at his mom. She nodded. He looked away. Then he read. My name is Aiden Carver, and I said something last week that I thought was a joke, but it wasn't. It was mean. It was wrong. I didn't understand who I was talking to. I didn't want to understand. But now I do. He paused. His hands were shaking. Nobody made a sound. Mr. Wallace didn't yell at me. He didn't try to embarrass me. He just told me the truth. And that hurt more than any punishment could, because it made me realize how small I'd acted. He looked up. I'm sorry. Not because people saw, but because I saw myself, and I didn't like what I saw. He walked off stage fast, like the words had burned through his sneakers. Silence. Not the awkward kind, the real kind. The kind that makes your throat close and your eyes sting without permission. I didn't clap. I didn't nod. I just sat there, letting it sink. Principal Blanding, trying to keep the show rolling, said, Thank you, Aiden, for that courageous... I stood up, didn't ask permission, didn't wait for a cue. I got something to say, I said, loud enough that nobody even tried to stop me. I took the mic, heavy in the hand, felt familiar, like the old radio in the field, calling for backup. My name is Joseph Wallace, I began, voice low but clear. And I serve this country not for medals or headlines, but so my granddaughter could walk into any room with her head high. I turned to the crowd. Some of you saw what happened last week and said nothing. Some of you laughed. Some of you turned your heads like it wasn't your business. And that is the problem. You could hear someone swallow. Disrespect doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like a hallway full of teachers too scared to say, "That's not okay." I looked at Cindy. She didn't meet my eyes. Aiden, I accept your apology. Not because it fixes everything, but because it means something when someone takes the first real step. You saw yourself, son. That's the hardest part. I face the students. You're going to meet people in your life who will try to make you feel small. But you don't have to shrink to fit their story. You can write your own. I gave the mic back and walked off. Didn't need a standing ovation. Didn't want one. But I'll be damned if half that room didn't stand anyway. Even Cindy. Though I don't think she meant to. Sometimes truth has a way of pulling you to your feet, whether you're ready or not. Outside, the sun was warmer than usual. Kayla ran ahead, skipping like she'd been waiting to breathe. "Grandpa!" she shouted, turning around. They listened. I smiled. Yeah, baby girl. Today they did. Back at the bench. Yeah, I went back one more time. 2 kids were waiting. They didn't say anything. Just sat down next to me. Close. Like they belonged there. And maybe, just maybe, now they did. That's the story. No edits, no sugar, just truth. Because sometimes, all it takes to shake a whole building is one voice refusing to be quiet.